We are here for our NASCAR Cup Series preview at Atlanta. I'm Sharon, fan for racing, and joining me today, of course, is Jay Huseman. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Thank you. And I know you're going to overtop me, but I'm just going to say it. I'm trying to stay warm. We haven't been above 36 degrees. Now, Sharon, you can go ahead and say you wish it were 36. I know.
36 would be a heat wave here. I'll tell you what it is right now. It's 19 degrees right now.
You're better than I thought.
Yeah, better. It is better. It's a heat wave for us at 19 degrees. I'm looking forward to next week. We're supposed to be in the 40s. So 36 sounds really good to me right now. Okay, so.
As I say, hopefully it's a little bit better. I think at Atlanta over the weekend, they projected 50s to 60s, somewhere in that range. It's still going to be chilly, but it's manageable.
It is manageable. Okay, so we are here for the NASCAR Cup Series review. I want to just remind everybody, last year we had the first ever, I think it was the first ever, 3-wide finish with Daniel Suarez, Kyle Busch, and Ryan Blaney. And I'm hoping we have another finish like that because that was exciting. I think I was speechless for the first few minutes.
That's what Brandon Hutchinson was on with Sirius XM throughout the week on an interview. And I heard him talking about that. He said the only way they could top that is to somehow get a 4-wide finish. So we'll see if that happens. But certainly that's going to be one of those in history. I know it broke the record. A lot of people look to Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven, as the closest in history on a non-super speedway.
Yeah, that was Darlington.
Yeah, Atlanta's kind of in that mix of it's still a mile and a half, but races like a super speedway. But it certainly was exciting. And I know FS1, I think, is replaying again tonight. There's a show on, and I'm trying to think of what the name of it off the top of my head. I'm missing it now, but it's breaking down. They got the 3 spotters, the 3 crew chiefs, and the 3 drivers all in separate areas of a theater. Yeah, watch that if you get the chance. It's pretty interesting to listen to.
It is. They give their perspectives as it's happening throughout the race. So, yeah, that's pretty exciting. I enjoyed watching that for sure. All right. To get into the NASCAR Cup Series, it's the Ambetter Health 400 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Again, it's a 1.54-mile asphalt oval. It will be this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The green flag is going to wave around 3:19 p.m. Eastern Time. It will be televised on Fox and Fox Deportes starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. So you'll have some pre-race coverage there. And then the radio coverage is on PRN and Sirius XM NASCAR Channel 90. They'll race a distance of 400.4 miles over 260 laps. The first stage is 60 laps. The second stage is going to be 100 laps, and the third stage is going to be 100 laps. So that's going to be an exciting race, Jay.
It certainly is. And just while you were setting that up and talking about it, I went to my DVR and looked. The name of the show is So Damn Close, Atlanta 2024. If you get a chance, it follows a lot of Kevin Harvick's happy hours, which are also some great shows to watch if you get the chance. I think they had the sit-down interview with Helio Castroneves, one with Roger Penske and Joey Logano, and then the Daytona 500 recap, I think, are the 3 I'm recording tonight.
Yes. And I just want to mention, and I know you did this last time, which I thought was a great idea, Jay, the non-charter teams that are entered this week.
Yeah.
Okay, the 01 of Corey LaJoy, the 44 of J.J. Yaley, and the 78 of B.J. McLeod. So there are going to be 39 teams for 40 spots. So it looks like everybody's going to make it in.
Yep, that'll be a 1 spot available, actually, even because I believe the 40 is a full field now, unless they give that provisional, which we don't have this weekend. So be interesting. Qualifying still important, but not as pressure packed when you have to get in the top 40 and there's more than 40 cars.
Yes, indeed. So it's just always good when we have a full field. So we'll take whatever we get, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've kind of been building back. I know last year, I think we actually hit down as low as 37, 38 on quite a few races. So hopefully we see this become closer to a full field of 40. I know there's a lot of things going on in the NASCAR world when it comes to the charter and open teams. Daytona obviously draws a lot. It's a big payout race. It's a prestigious race. So we had the extras. We'll see how it pans out throughout the season, but looking forward to it. And there's always that rumor of more teams coming in as far as manufacturers. So we got to stay tuned on that as well. That rumor is picking up speed again.
Yes. All right. Do you want to take the first bullet point here?
All right. When we look at Atlanta Motor Speedway, it'll be the 7th race on the new surface and configuration. And that goes back to 2022. But overall, the 122nd NASCAR Cup Series race all time at the 1.54 mile Speedway. And just to throw in here, as we go through some of the notes, I know we talked about this on different tracks. The Speedway configuration, as we mentioned, with it now being a super Speedway style racing, there's some stats you kind of got to look at too of Gen 7 or this next gen car versus the Gen 6 and then older beyond that. So keep that in mind as we share some of the stats.
Okay, now Atlanta held 2 races a year, 2 races every year from 1960 to 2010, except for 1961 when 3 races were held. Then they held 1 race a year from 2011 until 2020, and then starting in 2021, they went back to the 2 races a year. So I'm glad to see them doing the 2 races a year.
It is, and there's been a couple of changes. We talked about the reconfiguration, but also beginning in 2023, both Atlanta races were shortened to 400 miles. I think that has played a factor in it as well.
Okay. There's a total of 67 Cup Series drivers that have made their series debut at Atlanta. The most recent was Harrison Rhodes in 2018, Cody Ware in 2017, and Ty Dillon are the 2 in 14 are the 2 active drivers to make their debuts at Atlanta. So those 2 drivers will be in the race this weekend.
And to follow that up, you got the best finish by a driver making their NASCAR Cup Series debut at Atlanta Motor Speedway. That was a runner-up finish by NASCAR Hall of Famer Rusty Wallace. And that goes back to 1980, March 16th, 1980.
In total, there are 5 NASCAR Cup Series Atlanta Motor Speedway pole winners that are active this weekend. That would include Michael McDowell. He had a 24 sweep. Joey Logano in 2015 and again in 2023. Kyle Busch in 2018 and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 2013. The last one that we have on the list here is Denny Hamlin in 2010.
Now, the interesting thing about Michael McDowell, mentioned him sweeping both poles at Atlanta Motor Speedway in 2024. That was driving for Front Row Motorsports. He's now currently with Spire Motorsports for 2025 and beyond. So we'll see how Front Row Motorsports does without him and Front Row without him and Spire Motorsports now, if they can get up there in the mix with him.
Yes, that would be cool. Okay, now Ryan Newman holds the records for the most consecutive poles at Atlanta. He has 6, and that was from the spring of 2003 through 2005.
And this is under the category of believe it or not, in my opinion, but Chevrolet has not won a pole on a drafting track since Alex Bowman in the Daytona 500 in 2023. This 12-race streak now is their longest such drought since they went 13 races, and that was back in July of 1984 to February of 1988. We talked about how dominant Hendrick Motorsports was at Daytona, and the other 2 manufacturers put an end to that.
Yes, they did. All right. Now, the final green flag stretch was 5 laps or less in 4 of the last 5 Atlanta races. And the pass for the win came in the final 2 laps in 4 of the last 5 Atlanta races.
And here we get into what the manufacturers are doing. Ford has won the last 8 stages at Atlanta in the NASCAR Cup Series.
And then Toyota's on a 15-race winless streak at Atlanta. Kyle Busch in September of 2013 was the last and has only 5 top 5 finishes in 6 races on the new Atlanta.
And going back to Ford, they hold the record for the longest streak of consecutive Cup Series wins at Atlanta Motor Speedway, where they had 5 straight ranging from 2017 into 2021.
Now, 8 of 49 NASCAR Cup Series Atlanta Motor Speedway race winners are active this weekend. That's pretty amazing. Joey Logano, 23 and 24. William Byron in 22 and 23. Brad Keselowski in 17 and 19. Then you've got Kyle Busch in 2008 and 13. Daniel Suarez just last year. A lot of people are going to pull for him this year. Chase Elliott in 22. That's a home track for Chase. Ryan Blaney in 2021. And Denny Hamlin in 2012.
Now, both winners at Atlanta in 2024 led only 9 laps in each race. Daniel Suarez mentioned won in February with a last lap pass, and then Joey Logano won in September by leading just the final 2 laps.
Now, Ryan Blaney finished in the top 10 in the last 5 Atlanta races, the longest active streak at the track, and his 3rd longest streak at a single track. So Ryan Blaney might be somebody to look at for this weekend, too.
Throw in a quick tidbit there. I picked up on SiriusXM this morning on the morning drive. Ryan Blaney, and I don't know the exact number for Ryan Blaney, but he has the best average with the next-gen car. Daniel Suarez is 2nd. Chase Elliott is 3rd. And I know Chase Elliott, I heard, was 8.4. So Ryan Blaney and Daniel Suarez both above that. And that, again, is now with this next-gen car.
That's a good tidbit.
Now, Kyle Busch has finished in the top 10 in all 4 races at Atlanta since he's been with Richard Childress Racing. And that's his most at a track since moving to that number 8 car.
All right, let's talk about the other Kyle, Kyle Larson. He failed to finish 5 of the 6 races at Atlanta due to accidents, including the last 4, which is amazing. He was involved in an accident in all 6 of his races there. Hard to believe that about Kyle Larson.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put him on that list of struggling in Atlanta.
That's true.
Now, Austin Cindric has finished 8th in the Daytona 500, is the best finish by a driver who led the most laps in the last 10 races on drafting tracks. So again, they're considering Atlanta now a drafting track.
All right, now let's talk about the drivers that have posted their first Cup win at Atlanta. There are 6 drivers, including Bobby Johns in 1960. That goes back a ways. Bob Burdick did it the next year, 1961. Jim Hurtubise in 1966. And Jerry Nadeau, now there's a name I recognize, in 2000. Kevin Harvick in 2001. And Carl Edwards in 2005.
I was going to say, yeah, the last 3 I remember. The first 3 were a little before me.
Me too.
Since 2024, Team Penske drivers have run 1st and 2nd for 190 laps at drafting tracks. And that's a total of 6 times more than any other team. Last week at Daytona, they logged 34 laps in the top 2 positions, which is no other team had more than 2.
All right. In the Daytona 500, Team Penske had all 3 drivers lead 20-plus laps. That only the 4th time in series history a team has had 3 drivers that do that, lead 20 or more laps in a race at a drafting track. The last time was in February, Atlanta, and that was just last year. And it was also Team Penske then as well, Jay.
Well, there's a reason we're talking about this. Since 2023, Team Penske has led 898 laps total on drafting tracks. And that's more than 3 times the laps led by any other team.
Again, Team Penske is the only team with 3 different drivers to win a drafting track race in the next gen era. So you can say that Team Penske has really figured out that Gen 6 car faster than any other team.
So lastly, entering into the 2025 season, Team Penske has won at least once on a drafting track in 11 straight seasons. So it's not been just a recent dominance thing. It's been going on for over a decade.
Yeah, they've been very dominant. Now, the driver who led the most laps won the first 3 races at Atlanta and in the drafting track configuration, yet in the last 3 races, they have not finished higher than 10th. So that's kind of an interesting stat.
Now, Martin Truex Jr., who retired from active driver, will end his consecutive start streak this weekend at 685. He was ranked 6th all time. Joey Logano will now hold the longest active streak in Cup starts with his 578th start this weekend.
Wow. This is the 4th time that Hendrick Motorsports won the Clash and the Daytona 500 to start the season. That's more than any other team. The only time in history that a team won the Clash in the first 2 races of the season was Hendrick Motorsports in 1997 with driver Jeff Gordon.
I had not put those 2 together. How about that? Now, 2025 is the 40th straight season that Hendrick Motorsports won a race, which is the most all time.
William Byron's 12 wins in the next-gen car ranks 2nd, only behind Kyle Larson for the most. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I saw a list of that this morning, actually, on X. Now, William Byron became the 3rd driver to win multiple Daytona 500s for Hendrick Motorsports, the most drivers for any organization to win the Daytona 500.
William Byron again has 9 top 10s in the last 11 drafting track races, including his 3 wins. Plus, he finished in the top 10 in the last 3 races on drafting tracks, and that's the longest active streak.
And staying with William Byron and his stats, he finished in the top 6 in the last 8 races as he became the 3rd youngest driver with at least an 8-race top 6 streak. And that puts him behind Jeff Gordon and Richard Petty. Wow, some big names to be on a list with.
It certainly is. This is the 4th Atlanta race with a dual pit road speed limits during green flag stops. There has only been 1 green flag pit cycle, stage 2, of this race last year, since the rule was implemented in the summer of 2023.
Now, on average, drivers go 39.2 seconds of lap time lost due to the pitting under the green. And that's not including the stop time here at Atlanta, which is the largest time loss at any track.
Each of the 2 races at Atlanta in 24 had double-digit speeding penalties, 14 in February and 10 in September, the 2 most in a race last year.
Well, that's an interesting one. I had never thought about ranking the tracks as far as that. We hear about drivers, but the track of Atlanta apparently is a big one for it.
Might be something to watch this weekend.
Now, the 48 lead changes last February at Atlanta set a new track record, as the previous record was 46, was 2 years old. It was set in 2022, broke in 2024.
Now, the deepest in the field that an active race winner has started at Atlanta is 23rd, and that was Daniel Suarez, who was one of those 3 at the line last year, and he ended up with the victory.
And we'll talk a little bit more there with Suarez, as he's finished in the top 2 in the last 3 Atlanta races, and that includes his win, which was by 0.003 seconds in that in the race last year, the closest top 3 in series history.
Now, following Daytona, Riley Earps leads Shane Van Gisbergen by 16 points in the Sunoco Rookie of the Year standings. I'm happy for Riley.
And lastly, Josh Berry is already going to make his 50th career NASCAR Cup Series start at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. So that's a milestone for Josh Berry.
That is. Now, I want to just remind everybody, too, that the Atlanta track storylines and some insights. I did post that over at fanforracing.com. You're going to find it in the how to watch for this weekend, how to watch the races at Atlanta this weekend. So I just added it in there. It's in the side menu, so it should be easy for everybody to find, and you'll be able to catch all that information there. But some pretty cool information there. I still think Daniel Suarez is the guy to watch this weekend. What do you think?
Well, that's ironic because, like I said, this morning listening on the morning drive, they were all about Team Penske, starting with Ryan Blaney. Very solid pick, obviously. You mentioned Daniel Suarez. I actually think of the third one of the three. I was staying within those top three, but I think it's Kyle Busch going to come back and rebound.
Who's your dark horse?
Let's see, for a dark horse. You don't know what? I know a lot of people aren't necessarily sold on him yet, but we saw him at Daytona, Colleague Racing, and Ty Dillon. This is the best opportunity with a quality ride that I think he's had, truthfully. So I just want to see how he's doing. I don't know that I'd take him as a dark horse to win, but I think we're going to see him in the top 10 more than we ever have, and really could have a solid season.
All right. I cast my vote for Eric Jones in that category.
That's one Darlington is one of those too tough to tame. Atlanta's kind of that wild beast now, the beast of the East, as they've called it in the past. Certainly could be one.
All right. Anything else you want to make sure we mention before we move on?
Well, one thing I know we talk about this early in the season, watching the point standing shake up. We had some point standing shakeups even between races.
Yes.
Yeah. So Chase Briscoe, the number 19 pole sitting car, was penalized with an L2, I believe it was, for illegal mount brackets on the spoiler. Cost him 100 points, which puts him at minus 67 now. I believe it was crew chief suspended for 4 races, and I don't remember the amount of the fine. I think $100,000.
James Small is his crew chief.
Okay, James Small, the crew chief. They have, from what I've heard, Joe Gibbs Racing does plan to appeal it. But there were also 2 others of 10-point penalties, and I'm trying to remember what those were actually for. I know it was the 51 of Rick Ware Racing and Cody Ware, and the number.
Let me get the penalty report, and I can tell you who it is. Oh, this was the pre-race penalties for the 34 and the 51, where they ejected the crew chiefs for the 34. Both of these are the same thing. Ballast containers, any and all ballast added to the vehicle must be secured.
There we go.
A ballast container. Team was assessed with a loss of 10 driver and owner points, and that was pre-qualifying inspection. And I think they ejected the crew chiefs at that time too, or somebody from the team.
Yeah, I think it was the car chief. So that one was just the 10 points, owner and driver points, and then the car chief gone. And I heard the interview with Todd Gillen. He said it did make an impact because that was, again, pre-race. So they didn't have them for the duels as well as then final practice and the Daytona 500. One thing I want to talk about there, Sharon, when it came to the 19, I heard or saw a lot on social media, not so much on Sirius XM of call-ins, but on social media, people were up in arms about why the 19 got penalized post-race. And this is one, I can't get real technical as to it, but I can explain a good part of why. When you do the pre-race, that is an optical scan, and that is primarily for the body parts hitting or being in line with certain measurements. Okay. And even height-wise, you check a height, and they give you a tolerance. So post-race, then those parts settle. When you talk about this, and I'll best as I can, again, I'm not the tech guy, but with the spoiler bolted onto the car itself, there is a limit on the size of the hole for that bolt. The team is saying that the bolt would not fit, so they had to adjust the hole, claiming it wasn't their fault. NASCAR said it doesn't matter, then you should have used a different part, manufactured part that did work. by adjusting that and drilling and making the hole bigger. You put the bolt in and a washer with it. That's not something, and I'm trying to remember the measurements they gave. It's not something you're going to see by the naked eye anyhow. So for these fans that are asking why they get away with this pre-race, they aren't tearing every car down pre-race. Do you have any idea how long that would take? They said on average, and the post-race for one car, they spend 2 to 3 hours taking it apart. When they call you to pick it up when it's done, you come with a trailer and pick up the parts because they take it apart and go through it. You're not going to do that pre-race. This is why they do it post-race, and they do it randomly. They don't just take the winner or certain spots. They do it randomly. Manufacturer, team, random, throw a dice and just say, hey, this spot, wherever you finish. But that's something, like I said, you're not going to find, and isn't even going to be noticed by the naked eye. They take it and run it through a scanner again of whatever. Now, what is the purpose of the gain if it was intentional? And I'm not saying it was, but with that, if the hole is bigger, you put the bolt in. As they get to racing, if there isn't that tight seal, the spoiler can lift up, and now you got air movement through there, and any little amount matters. They're looking for that slight edge. Especially
at the drafting tracks.
Exactly.
Yeah, and thank you for that explanation, because I think a lot of people don't realize the intense effort that NASCAR puts into making sure that we're watching legitimate, things going on the racetrack. And that's one of their efforts, is to take that car back to their R&D center and totally dismantle it to make sure that everything was legal.
And there again, people asking, well, why would they do it then? Because again, if they can get away with it and get a win, or in this case, he was on the pole, and I don't want to say the guilt or not. And even once the final appeal comes out, it may have been unintentional that they truly, if what they're saying is to get the bolt in, they had to adjust it. There was no intent for that. NASCAR can't open it up to, did you intend to?
They can't judge intent.
Exactly. And I was thinking on this of how to explain it to even just the most casual race fan. If I happen to be carrying a shotgun and a ski mask going into a bank and they stop me, I'm gonna be in trouble, right? I haven't robbed the bank yet, but there is clearly an indication, Yeah. But yeah, they're not going to judge based on whether or not I did it. If that intent is there, or the possibility, yeah, I'm gonna have some questions to answer.
Exactly, and that's what this is all about. And you might not like the idea that we have to wait to find out, but from my perspective, I would rather wait for that period of time to find out if the car was illegal. That's a learning opportunity, and if it wasn't intentional, then the team is going to learn that that's something that they need to check and to be aware of, so that they don't let it happen again. So I think it's a good thing that NASCAR does those things. And if we have to wait, we have to wait.
And like I said, then if there is a problem with the manufactured part, which they're not allowed to mess with, send it back. Get one that does match and everything works, and send it back and take it up with that manufacturer. As far as that part, saying, hey, you sold me a part that doesn't work, we'd have had to alter it and we can't, so fix it, versus trying to do it themselves. Because if NASCAR catches you, your excuse of, well, it came that way ain't going to hold water.
And that's a lesson that I think they should have learned from the very first year that we had the Gen 6 car, Jay, because we had several incidences like that with the Gen 6 car in the first year. So it should have been something learned a while ago.
The other thing, and I didn't engage in it on social media, Sharon, you and I have talked about this. I'll look at it, and once in a while I'll respond, but as a whole, I don't get into the back and forth. But one thing that popped in my head is a movie, Jim Carrey, Liar, Liar, where he's a lawyer. And the guy kept, like, I did this again. He's just like, stop breaking the law. You want to not have these problems? Stop breaking the law.
Exactly.
And I think it was Todd. Yeah, it was Todd Gordon. I take that back. He was the one that broke down the what was happening with the spoiler. But there was another crew chief, and I don't remember who it was, but admitted that, with everything, they know there's a tolerance. So that was the one talking about the ride height. Why pre-race versus post-race? Pre-race, you set it where it's got to be, you check in. Post-race, you have that margin. And he said, first pit stop, they would drop the jack bar and lower it, knowing they had that tolerance, and then hope that damage didn't drop it any further outside of that tolerance. And I thought back to the Alex Bowman penalty from last year, and Jeff Gordon said it. We pushed it too close. That means they knew they had pushed it as close as they could, and it went a little too far, and they didn't appeal it for that reason. They know what they're doing.
They know it, and they're looking for every opportunity they can get. NASCAR found it. They didn't like it, and they let you know that they don't like it when they take 100 points off of your point. And the first race in the season, and you lose 100 points, that is really rough.
Well, and I would just think about it. We've been talking about the Xfinity fast lap of getting that 1 point and how 1 point can make a difference. I saw on the two that got 10 points, I'm like, ooh, that's kind of a, tough to make up. Yeah, you're talking about a lot. Fortunately, I think with Chase Briscoe and that 19 team of Joe Gibbs Racing, they're probably going to win some races, but they got to win 2 races to get back to 0 when they start the playoffs, because it was 10 playoff points as well.
Yes. So that is very, very, that's a message that NASCAR is sending when they come out with that stiff of a penalty. And so you gotta understand NASCAR's been doing this a long time. So they know what they're doing.
And the other one, go ahead.
Been doing this a long time. These teams have been doing this a long time too.
The other one I think about with that of pushing the envelope, and that one's a real simple one. We read some of the stats on Atlanta here as far as the speeding on pit road. If the speed limit is 55, they give them 5 up to 59.9. What do these teams do? They try and go 59.8. You go over and they're like, oh, give us a little bit. No, you've already used up what you've been given.
Exactly. And same thing with the ride heights. When there's a ride height discrepancy, NASCAR checks it. They let it sit for a while. They come back and they check it again. If it's still out of tolerance, they'll wait a little bit longer. They come back and check it again. They try to give them as much allowance as they possibly can. But after that many attempts, at some point, they got to make the call. And that's what happened, I think, in the Truck Series.
And I didn't mean to get us all the way off there on that penalty, but like I said, that was some things I heard in the social media, like I said, of that, or the pre-race, post-race. I certainly wanted to address that. One, because I was well aware of why and how. I may not be a tech guy, but I know enough about that to say there are certain things that aren't even going to show up pre-race. It's, what they set up and design, if it's intentional, that happened during the race. But they also know it will and try and over-adjust for it.
Exactly. So you got to know that NASCAR knows what they're doing. At least I feel that way about it. I feel that NASCAR knows what they're doing, and I trust them for the most part. Promo for the hot topics for Monday night, because we are going to sit down. Jay and I will sit down. I don't know if Sal will be able to join us or not, but Jay and I will sit down and do hot topics, cover some of these hot topics. We've got a whole list of hot topics to cover, so watch for that coming next week.
And I am looking forward to that.
Are we finished, Jay?
I think so. No, I think so. Again, we kind of covered a lot here going into Atlanta. I know it's only second race, but kind of excited to see how not just that race goes, but this is where we start seeing the impact of the season. Especially these first races, see which teams either are on top of their game or not. Some of them, and we talked about Chase Briscoe and the penalty, see if they can recover and dig out of the hole. It kind of sets the stage for the whole season. So I like these early races. I know some people are like, yeah, they don't matter until you get to the playoffs. Now, this is what sets the playoffs, really.
Yes, and the earlier driver can win, the earlier they don't have to worry about the rest of the season. Not that they're not trying to win the entire season, but it gives them more of a chance to learn in preparation for, I think, the playoffs. So these early wins are really, really important, I think. All right, so I think we're ready to do our closeout here. Watch for more previews, reviews, and interviews coming on Fan for Racing Radio. And if you like what we're doing here, I'd really encourage you to like and subscribe to Fan for Racing Radio. We're trying to make this interactive with the fans, and that interaction is going to become more and more important to us as we think about people that we want to bring into the show with us to interact with us for hot topics. So think about that. And do your like and subscribe here. And then if you want to be notified when the videos are coming out, you want to hit the notified button. Also want to encourage you to check out our website, fanforracing.com. Sometimes we have commentary there, but most of the time we'll make sure we have the reviews of all the races. We do the previews and reviews on YouTube, but also we'll do the Newswire recaps of all the races as well over there. And you'll want to watch for more coming soon here at Fan for Racing as well. So we want to say thank you for watching. We really appreciate everybody taking the time to hear what we have to say. And let me put up our thank you for watching thing here.
I like that clip.
Yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to hear what we have to say. We enjoy doing this. We're learning YouTube and getting a little bit better, I think, as we go along here. But we really appreciate everybody taking the time to hear what we have to say and listening on YouTube. So, and share our videos. Encourage others to come and like and subscribe as well. So again, I think we're just about at the end here. Anything more you wanted to say, Jay?
No, you kind of hit on it. If you are watching and enjoy it, share it around. I noticed we had picked up a couple more subscribers since Monday or Wednesday, whenever we did Wednesday, I guess, when we did the others. So thank you for that. And again, share it around. And, Sharon and I are kicking around some ideas of how to go about hot topics, maybe getting more fan interaction. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, everybody. Have a good race weekend, and we'll see you on the other side.